So, I like to draw. I'm not super good at it, but it's what I do. And while I usually just draw stuff that I like, I almost never draw anything of my own. However, I decided to finally be original for once and make something out of my noggin. My very first OC, or original character. I've been wanting to do it for so long, but I haven't had any ideas. So recently, I decided to pump some out, and the following is what I came up with. So for the first one, I decided that I was going to make a rock star. Kind of like a mix of a Jeff Buckley or a Kurt Cobain. So I grabbed my sketchbook and started jotting down some ideas. My first OC would need messy hair with a little bit of teen angst, and give it some piercings too. So I got to drawing, and I ended up with a very basic head model. Not the best, but basic enough for me to work with easily. Next I gave him a 2005 Brendan Urie hairline, and then began to shade it in. We ended up with some pretty generic hair, so I decided to draw some of his body too. And we ended up with a much different result than I would have expected. I have no idea for a name, but he does look like a rock star, albeit a little bit more emo than I expected. But I think I should be proud that I did this without a reference. I don't know who can tell, but I just had a major voice crack. While my first try could have been worse, I decided that I was going to aim for better. So I had to come up with better ideas for a second OC. And for some reason, I immediately thought about a hippie, kind of like a Nick Drake type of guy. So putting aside certain aspects of hippie culture, I decided to make a list of characteristics I would need. I immediately knew long hair would be a must, but I didn't want to go full out and give him colorful clothes, so maybe just a button up or a jacket. Immediately thereafter, I got to sketching. I tried doing the side part, but I don't know that worked out too well. But I then moved on to the clothes and tried to give it a somewhat formal look, which kind of failed because it was slightly off-centered. And though it looked vaguely similar to the reference, it was still an objectively bad drawing. Despite this, I decided that I would give my OC a dignified name. Rick. And then, midway through recording, I realized something. I'm not doing enough. My OCs are extremely vanilla, and I was doing a pretty mediocre job drawing them, so I decided I was going to try to kick it up a notch. But then that became a problem itself, because I had no ideas. Until I realized I could just draw somebody that's vaguely based on me. I think that's what most people's OCs are anyways, so why not? And I'm not talking about this doodle that I use to fill space. I'm thinking one that's more actually like me. But then I ran into another dilemma. I don't even know who I am. What do I actually like? So it was at that moment where I had to sit down and think about what I actually like. Things like poetry, guitar, Japan, and other stuff. Now I just had to figure out how I would encapsulate all of that into a character. So I started off with the same process, and it was all business as usual, but I ended up gripping my pencil too hard and it broke. So then I just grabbed a new one. I started off with a basic head, and then all that was left was to fill everything else in. So I started with a small afro. Very easy, very simple to draw. I then gave myself a very manly, real-to-life face. Now mind you, this is all realistic. I then mustered up my best Saitama body and ended up with this, which was a realistic representation of how I'm actually built. People don't know, but I really have that build. So at the end of the day, we learned absolutely nothing. Subscribe so I can eat something. Bye.